Hi and welcome to the Sewing Studio. I'm Anna and in today's video I am going to present to you the Janome Atelier 9 Sewing and Embroidery Machine. I'm going to talk you through all its features. I'll show you everything that comes in the box. I'll show you how to get the machine threaded, we'll do some sewing, I'll show you its capabilities, and then I'll show you how to switch it over to embroidery and we'll stitch out an embroidery design. And then lastly, I'm going to talk a bit about warranty and support. Now we've split all of those into chapters, so if there's a particular section that you're interested in, feel free to head straight there. Now, as I say, the Atelier 9 is a sewing and embroidery machine in one. So you've got the best of both worlds in one nice, neat package. Now, on the sewing machine side of things, it is a powerhouse of a machine. So firstly, it's larger than standard size sewing machines, so you've got just over 8 inches of space to the right of the needle. Built in, you'll find 300 different stitch options. They are all detailed under the lid here for you, but they all also feature in the nice large coloured touchscreen on the front. And within there you'll find utility stitches. There's 11 different styles of one-step buttonholes. There really is a buttonhole for every single type of fabric that you're wanting to work with. There's also decorative stitches, quilting ones, applique ones, some satin stitches, some really nice tapering ones as well. Also, there's stitch fonts in there, both uppercase and lowercase. Now that's separate from the embroidery. These are stitch fonts that you get on a sewing machine. Now, as I say, they're all easily selected with the touchscreen, and within there as well, you can change the width and the length of those stitches. And the maximum stitch width on this machine is 9mm, and the maximum length is 5mm. Now there's also some help within the screen as well to help you with the machine, and there is this section called applications, and that's really good for different principles that you're doing, like let me think, if you want to insert a zip, if you're doing some smocking, if you're doing applique, quilting, free motion work, things like that. It's a simple press of a button, and with the automatic features on this machine, it's just going to set everything up for you. I will show you some of those when we get into the sewing section. Now, talking about the automatic features, as I say, there is a few on this machine. So the first one that's really nice is the automatic tension. So you don't need to be adjusting your tension for different projects that you're working on. You've also got your automatic thread cutter in there. You've got an automatic presser foot lift, so that gives you the pivot function where your needle stays down and the presser foot will automatically come up, and you can very simply turn your work and then carry on sewing. And that's really useful for things like chain piecing, where you stop with your first one, the presser foot will automatically come up and off you go again with your next one. So whilst I'm talking about the presser foot, it does have a manual lever at the back as well, even though the presser foot is electronic, and you can raise that up so you can get any bulky items in underneath. Now this machine also comes with a knee lift that you can plug into the front of the machine, so you can raise and lower the presser foot with your knee should you wish to do so. And then lastly, the pressure that is applied to the presser foot is automatic as well. Now, in terms of operating the machine, you have the choice whether you use the foot pedal or the start-stop button down here, but either way you have the ability to control your speed. Now, the other buttons on the front here, you've got your reverse function, a locking stitch / pattern end, needle up, needle down, and that can be programmed for the needle to either stay down when you stop sewing or come up, whichever you prefer. You've got your automatic presser foot button that will raise and lower the presser foot with the touch of a button, and then, as I was saying, the automatic thread cutter. There is also a manual cutter on the side here as well. Now, in terms of threading the machine, it's nice and easy to do. There is a numbered path for you to follow, and then down here there is Janome Superior Needle Threader, so it's a one action, very easy to do. The bobbin is a top loading style, so you simply drop that in and then you can thread it around this quick set here, and there's no need to draw up the bobbin thread. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. You can simply start sewing. And the feed teeth, this is Janome's 7-piece feed drive system. I needed to get that right then. But basically it means that there are more teeth that are feeding the fabric through the machine. So it gives you nice control and nice consistent results. The feed dogs can also be dropped. There's just a lever on the side here, and that's to enable you to do the embroidery function, but also to do free motion work. In the front, there is storage. to fit the feet and accessories that come with the machine. And then this piece comes off to give you a free arm to sew any trouser hems, cuffs, things like that. Now this also applies when using the embroidery functionality on this machine, because it gives you the ability to do what's called free arm embroidery. And what that means is ready-made items are much easier to navigate. So the excess fabric just hangs down under here so that you're only embroidering through one layer of the garment or bag, whatever it is that you're doing. Now the maximum embroidery area on this machine is 170 by 200 millimeters. That's around 7 by 8 inches. To give you an idea, it's that size there, so it is nice and generous. Now within the machine there are 300 designs built in and about 10 different font styles as well. And I've switched the machine over to embroidery just so you can see it's slightly different, but this is where we do all our editing as well. So we select our designs in there and then we can edit them if we want to. And there's all sorts of different ways in which we can do that by simply changing the size of it, changing the rotation of it. We can add multiples of the same. Just trying to think now what you can do. If you want to stitch it all out in one colour, you can change your colours on the screen, the fonts you can array around a design, all sorts of different things. But what's most important is that you can do that right on the screen here. You don't need a separate piece of technology to do that. Now, if you want to upload your designs, there is a USB port on the side here. So you can do that either with a memory stick or by connecting directly into a PC. Now I've already got the embroidery module attached to the machine and you can sew with that on, but it does come off as a separate unit as well. And then all you do is swing out the arm here and then it slots into position. There are a few other bits to change, the foot and things, and I'll show you that when we get to the sewing section, but essentially you're then ready to start doing some embroidery. In terms of what comes in the box, the machine will arrive without the embroidery module attached. So I'm just going to turn it off a minute and take that off. So as you can see, that's a standalone piece. So the machine arrives like this with the standard presser foot already attached, as well as a zip foot, an overcasting foot, one for blind hems, satin stitch, and then an open toe version of the satin stitch, a rolled hem, a 1/4 inch piecing foot, one for sewing on buttons, and then your one-step buttonhole foot with stabilising plate. Down here we've got a few free motion options as well as the darning foot. And then here is Janome's even feed foot with a couple of interchangeable soles, as well as a narrow one with an interchangeable zip foot. This one is for the embroidery side of the machine, and then lastly we've got a couching foot set here. There's also this range of accessories, as well as the different size embroidery hoops. So you get the largest one, which is 170 by 200 mils. You then get the next size down, which is 140 millimeters square, and then the smaller one, which is 100 by 40 mil. You get some magnets as well that you can use on these bigger ones. They magnetise on, and that's for items that are too bulky to hoop. And you also get this cloth guide. So although it attaches to the embroidery arm, you can use it when you're sewing. And it basically sits here and you can set the distance that you want it and then run the edge of what you're sewing against it to give you a consistent seam. You've got a lead to connect the machine directly to a PC, your power lead, foot control, knee lift, and an instruction manual. You also get some stabiliser to use on the embroidery to get you going. And then there's a storage bag for the embroidery module, as well as a nice cover that sits over the top of the machine when the embroidery module isn't attached. Now this machine without the embroidery module on weighs around 12 kilos, so it's not the most transportable in the world, but it certainly is doable if you did want to take it out and about. Now, if you're enjoying what you're watching, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You could watch lots of videos that we upload. Could be one like this on a different model of machine, or one of our great sewing tutorials. So without further ado, let's show you how to thread the machine and we'll do some sewing. So to thread the machine, you just want to pop the cover up, take off the spool cap that's already on there, and then pop your reel of thread in. And you get different size of these caps depending on the size of reel that you're using. So I'm just going to pop my spool on and then put the cap on at the end. Grab myself some thread, and then as I say, it's all numbered, so I'm just following the numbers. So I'm going number 1, 2, down and around number 3. Now I can see the take-up lever isn't here for me to thread, which means the needle's not in the right position, so the needle threader won't work either. So what you need to do is just use the needle up down button to send the needle down, back up again, and now this is popped up for me to thread. So I'm just going to go in and around that one, down in number 5. Number 6 is the one just at the very top of the needle, and then number 7 is the needle threader. So you just want to lay the thread in between those there, so it's just in there. Cut the thread off on the thread cutter, and then just go down and up, and as if by magic, the needle is threaded. So I'm just going to pop that under the foot. And then for the bobbin, you just want to slide this to the right and the cover will pop up so you can take that out. Grab your bobbin and you want the tail of the thread to be coming off on the left. So I'm just going to drop that in and I put my finger on it so I'm threading under tension, and you're going under that lip there, which in turn is taking it under the tension spring there. So I'm just going to go right the way around to the back, in and around this quick set. There's a little cutter there, so I'm going to cut that off and then pop the cover back on, and then you're ready to sew. So when you switch the machine on, regardless of if you've got the embroidery module attached or not, you will always be presented with the first sewing screen, which puts you on a straight stitch, which is what we use most of the time, isn't it? So I'll just grab the stylus. So if you want to alter the width and the length of this stitch, so it will be already set for you because it's a computerized machine. So you can very simply just adjust them up and down as you like. But what's really nice is that it gives you a representation on the screen here of what the stitch is going to look like. Not necessarily relevant for your straight stitch, but I'll go back in the middle there. But when you're doing zigzags and things, I'll show you in a minute, it's really good so you can see what it's going to sew out like. But let me show you some of these functions on the straight stitch. So I'm going to drop the presser foot down. I've not got the foot pedal plugged in, so I am just going to be using the start stop button. And at the moment I'm on the slowest speed. So I'm literally just going to make a start. Now I need to secure those, so I'm going to reverse. And I keep my finger on for as far back as I'd like to go, let go, and it will come forward again. So let's increase the speed. And top speed there on this machine, because I don't think I said earlier, is 1,000 stitches per minute. So I've stopped, I still need to secure that. So again, I can just go back as far as I want to go. And press my scissors, and then that's cut the threads for me. It's automatically raised the presser foot so I can take my work out. And that's the lovely straight stitch, that's on the top, and then that's underneath. So if we switch to a zigzag now, so I'm very simply just selecting this one here, which is zigzag with the needle in the middle position. And you can see this is how it's going to sew out, which is pretty much standard. But if I start altering the width, so if we go up to a wide and then take it right down, you can see how you could, if you wanted to, with using the zigzag, achieve a satin stitch to do applique and things and stuff. There are those stitches built into this machine, but even so, sometimes that's the way we like to do it. If you want to get back to where you were, it's probably just as simple to go onto another stitch and then back to that stitch. So let's sew out a zigzag, and I'm going to show you a different way. Oh, I always go for the lever, it's just habit, isn't it? So I drop the presser foot. A different way of securing the stitch, and that's with this locking stitch button. So what you do is press this one first and then make a start. And it's just sewing 3 stitches on the spot to secure the thread. Just going to take the speed back down, and then you can carry on. press that one to finish, it will stop sewing, do the 3 stitches on the spot, cut that one off, and up it comes. And that's the zigzag stitch, and as you can see it's nice and neat either end where it's just tied that off, and underneath you can see your little tie-offs at either end there. And that's really good if you're doing something quite decorative or top stitching, something like that. Let's take a quick look at the pivot function that I was talking about. So to enable that, it's this symbol here. So you just want to press on that one and it goes yellow. And I'm going to drop the presser foot down and start sewing. And then I'm going to stop, and the needle stayed in. The presser foot has automatically come up, so I can very quickly pivot around and start sewing again. Pivot. And as I was saying, if you're chain piecing, you can just, especially if you're on the foot pedal, you can just start and stop and, you know, add them in, add them in, add them in. It's really easy to do. So we'll just go back to the beginning. There we go. And you can, in the settings as well, set the height that that foot comes up when you're pivoting. So if you are working with something bulkier, it will come up higher for you if that's what you want to do. So that's how we've very simply done a square using the pivot function. So to navigate through all the different stitches, like I said, they're represented on the top here, and this is just an idea to show you what is contained within the machine stitch-wise. And then you navigate them through these folders here. So in here you can see we're in our utility one, more utility stitches, and if we keep scrolling through, we're now into the buttonhole, which we'll do next. So I'm using cotton, so I'm going to stay with the standard buttonhole. And then here it's giving me a guide, so it's telling me to use foot R. So to take these off, these just snap on and off, so I'm just going to push the lever at the back and that'll drop down. And then I've got my buttonhole foot here, she says. So I'm just taking the stabilising plate off. The stabilising plate is for if you're working with something quite thick or slippy, and what you would do is put your fabric in between that and then slot the buttonhole foot on top, and that helps to keep the fabric stable whilst you're sewing the buttonhole. So how this works is you push this back and then pop your button in and then clamp your button. And then what that's doing is determining a size here that is the size you need your buttonhole with an extra 2mm so that you can get it in and out. So I'm just going to snap that on. So you just line the pin up with the bottom of the foot, drop the presser foot down, up you come. I'm going to pop this thread underneath the foot, so I just drop the needle in, pull it up again, and then gently tug on the fabric to get that underneath. Okay, so I'm just going to come here. So the buttonhole sews in that direction, and there is a viewing window here, so you can absolutely put a mark to see where you want it to start. And drop the presser foot down. Hang on, I'll do that in a minute. It's also telling us here to pull down the buttonhole lever. And that is located just behind the needle threader, and you come down and you put that into place behind that plastic piece there. So now I'm going to drop that down and we'll make a start. Okay, so I take that out, and there's your buttonhole, and you can carry on and do as many of those as you need to. That's the underneath. It's very neat. Okay, so if we carry on scrolling through the stitches, that's the buttonhole section. And then you come into applique, heirloom, quilting stitches in there, satin stitches, So you're basically scrolling through the sections that are on here to find your stitches. When it comes to the fonts, you can click on this one here and then it gives you all your different type of fonts. We'll do those in a minute. First off, I'm going to choose a Pictograph to show you the pattern end function on the lock button. So let's choose something that has a definite, oh, let's do a row of cats, that's fine. Okay. Incidentally up here, look, you can, if you choose that, you can just sew out one cat, or that is to sew out a row of them. You can mirror image it, so the cats are facing the opposite way, or upside down. I'll put it back to normal. And then I'm going to change the foot. Again, it gives you a guide here of which foot to use. And I'm going to change that to the satin stitch foot. And the reason it wants that one is because there's a bit of a raised piece with these two pieces of metal, so that the stitches that are a bit denser can flow better under the foot and not get stuck. So I'm just going to pop that in under there. And I'm going to grab my fabric. Got that caught now. There it goes. And sew out the cats. And what it does by pressing the locking stitch button when you're about to finish your row is ensures that when you're on a stitch, it's finishing the actual stitch. So in this case, it's finishing a whole cat. If we were to stop it and guess where it is, you know, sometimes you end up with a piece missing down here and it can look a bit messy. So by using the locking stitch button, which is also a pattern end, it's finishing the pattern before you stop sewing. So let's go into the fonts now, because that is using the same foot. So I'm going to go into the A, and then we'll just stick with the block there, choose our font, and then you've got small or large that you can choose from, and you've got uppercase and lowercase. So let's just stitch out the word Janome. So I'm going to do a capital J, and this will present here for you. A-N-O-M-E. Don't know why I had to spell that out in my head. So this is the word that I want to stitch out. These here are spaces, so a small, medium, large space. If you wanted to go on and add another word, it just leaves a gap there basically. But I don't want to do that, so I'm going to delete those out and then just stitch out the word Janome. So I'm going to pop that in underneath. And there we go. There's our word Janome. Now each letter is secured, so if you wanted to go through and take these out with your seam ripper, the little joining stitches, you absolutely can, and nothing is going to unravel. And that's the maximum size that you can achieve of the stitch fonts. Don't forget we're on the stitching side of thing. Embroidery is different, where you can make them bigger. Let's move on to a different type of fabric now. I'm going to take this foot off. I'm going to sew with some denim to show you the machine's capabilities in terms of the thickness of fabric that it will sew through. So I'm going to change the needle to a jeans needle. And this machine takes standard needles, as long as they've got the flat back. You know, it's always good to buy good quality needles. You'll get much better sewing results, and it's really important to make sure when you're putting this in that it is fully up as far as it can go. I'm just going to tighten the screw by hand and then another quarter turn, and then I'm going to pop the standard foot back on, drop that on, and let's get the eye of the needle threaded. There we go. pop that in there. Okay, so this is 2 layers of denim that we'll go through first, and this is a 10-ounce denim that we keep in our shop. Not too stretchy, it's quite stable. So I'm going to go back to the utility stitches and the standard straight stitch, and because this is thicker than the cotton that we were working on, I'm going to increase the stitch length just to 3mm, and that helps to keep the stitch on top of the fabric rather than it pulling in like it does sometimes. So drop the press foot down. And that's going through 2 layers. It's handled that with no problem at all. No skip stitches. That's on the top, that's underneath, and then the seam is really secure. So let's double that over now and go through 4 layers. I'm not going to change any of the settings on the machine. Let's go this side. Again, it's gone through that no problem at all. So I'm going to double it over again. So we'll go through 8 layers now. This time I am going to increase the stitch length again, just slightly because it's so thick. Let's go 1mm, or nearly. Okay. You can hear that's working harder, and that's just a little bit of resistance to the needle of when it's penetrating through the fabric, and that is perfectly normal. I've only got a size 16 needle on, so if I was to change that up to an 18, I would be doubling that over and going again, but slowing it right down and increasing the stitch length again. But this is 8 layers, which you shouldn't really need to be doing any more than that on a domestic machine. And you can see how secure that stitch is. And like I say, nothing is skipped. It does a really, really nice job. So we'll move over to a stretchy fabric now. I've got a piece of jersey here. It's got quite a lot of stretch in it. And this is just cut out of an old t-shirt. I've popped a jersey needle, so a ballpoint needle on there, and there's a couple of different options you can choose. So there's the triple straight stitch, or there is the lightning stitch. Seeing the way that the rib is going on this fabric, I think I'm going to try the triple straight stitch first, and then increase the stitch length to, let's go 3.5, okay. Let's put that under, else that will get sucked in if I go that far. Okay, so that's how that's come out, and you can see it's really wavy in there, which is not ideal. So what I'm going to do is put the Janome dual feed foot on, because I think that's the right stitch for this fabric. I think the lightning stitch would be even worse. So I'm going to pop this on. Now this slots into the back of the machine, which is important, which I'll explain why in a minute. So this is what Janome call their AcuFeed technology. And in essence, it is a walking foot, but it is more superior to what is a standard walking foot. The reason being that a standard walking foot, you have an arm that comes out that sits on the top of the needle bar there. So when you're sewing, it's the action of the needle going up and down that's making the teeth kind of do this. Whereas this type is driven from the motor of the machine. So it's very much getting the top layer and feeding it consistently with the bottom layer. So let's engage the dual feed, which is this symbol here. So I'm going to press that one, and it reminds you to make sure the proper presser foot is attached, which it is. And then I'm going to stay on my triple straight stitch, and let's see what difference it makes. And you can see how much flatter that is sitting. And that's because it's feeding the top layer at a consistent rate at the bottom layer, so it's not pushing the top layer that achieves that rippling. Now, whilst I've got the AcuFeed foot, I couldn't think what it was called then, the AcuFeed walking foot on, let's do a little bit of quilting, which is what it's also designed for. Sorry, I was just grabbing my quilt sandwich there. So again, the idea is that the bottom fabric is feeding at the same rate as the top fabric. Now, what you'll find when you've got the dual feed symbol pressed is that some stitches will be greyed out. And that is because you shouldn't be using them, because they have a backwards action as well as a forwards action. It's not ideal to be using them with the dual feed foot. So you can see there's quite a lot there that are greyed out. We've got your piecing foot here, your hand look stitches, things that you would want to do for quilting. So I'm going to go back to the standard straight stitch. I'm going to increase my stitch length because we're going through a few layers. Move that away from that one that I did. You can do the triple straight stitch, but I don't need to. And again, it's up to you. I don't tend to secure my stitches when I'm quilting, but it's up to you if you want to reverse to secure them, which I wouldn't go back too far, or preferably use the locking stitch. Up to you. And that's a lovely neat piece of quilting there. That's on the top and that's underneath. And again, there's no shift in the layers when you're quilting. So whilst I've got the quilt sandwich out, let's take a look at free motion before we move on to embroidery. So I'm just gonna take the even feed foot out because we definitely don't want to use that. And actually, I've just realised I've still got the ballpoint needle on here, but that's okay. Take that out and pop the standard one back on. Get that threaded. Okay, so this is where I'm going to show you the applications that I was talking about. So I'll take off the dual feed functionality and I'm going to go into the applications. And there are different ones here that you can choose. So simply seaming, over edging, gathering, scroll across, putting on a button, tacking, applique, patchwork quilting, which is what I want, is the quilting. And I want to do free motion quilting. So I'm going to go into here and it reminds you to lower the feed dogs, and that is just a switch on the side here. I'm just going to pull towards me. Now there are different feet that you can use. They come with the machine, and you've got the traditional sort of darning free motion foot that hops, or you've got little plastic ones that kind of stay, well, they stay. They don't hop because it's got the electronic presser foot. They sit just above the fabric that you're sewing. So straight stitch one, a zigzag stitch one, tells you is using the darning foot. And then straight stitch two, which is what I want, is using one of these small feet. So I'm going to put the ankle back on. And then this fits slightly differently from the other feet because there's a bar at the back. And what you do is you just slot that in the back there before you then drop the presser foot down. And that's raised at the back now. So you've only got a very small area that is actually touching the fabric, which is kind of what you want when you're doing free motion. Got my needle threaded there. Now, because I'm using this and I've pressed that, obviously I've dropped the feed dogs down, but also it's changed all my tensions and it's done everything else automatically for me that I would ordinarily need to set. Up on this one here, you're able to change the height that the foot is at. So if I raise the foot up a minute and pop my fabric underneath and drop it, that's actually okay for what I want. It could come down slightly. So if you're doing free motion on like applique or something like that and it's a lot thinner, you can set it lower. Also, if you're doing something thicker with thicker wadding, you can absolutely set it higher. So I'm just going to go okay. I'm going to drop my needle down to draw up my bobbin thread. then I'm going to drop the needle in. There's about a good way for me with free motion, and then I'm just going to make a start. Just going to stop there and pull these threads out the way, and then go again. You get the idea. And then I don't tend to use the thread cutter because I want my threads so that I can tie them all off nice and neatly. So I'm just going to cut them off on the cutter. And there's some free motion. That's on the top and that's underneath. And there's no eyelashing or anything. That's why I quite like these little feet, because it really does stop the fabric being able to pull up like that when you're sewing, which can give you inconsistent results. To switch over to embroidery, you're going to take out your sewing thread and the needle, as well as the whole of the presser foot, so the ankle and the foot. Unscrew that, and then I'm going to take the free arm off, and down here there is a very quick like toast popping up needle change, so you can take that out. That's really useful as well for you to be able to keep everything nice and clean, but it's easy when you're switching over to the straight stitch plate. So I'm going to take that bobbin out, and I'm going to take this bobbin case out, which is the one for sewing, and then put everything back but different. So this is the yellow bobbin case, which is for embroidery. It's at a higher tension. And then I've got the straight stitch plate, which you just line those lugs up and then push on the circle there. So now I can pop that back on, and you'll see a warning comes up to say that the straight stitch plate is on, because you can use that in the sewing mode as well if you want to. And then I'm going to pop the embroidery foot on. That just screws onto the shank there, nice and tight, and then pop an embroidery needle in. And then lastly, I'm going to open the carriage. So it's just this lever here until it clicks into place like that. And actually, lastly, is dropping the feed dogs there. So to switch the screen over to embroidery, I'm going to press this one here, which has got your sewing machine symbol and then embroidery symbol. And it says to make sure that the proper presser foot is attached and to keep our hands clear, because the carriage is going to position itself. So you go, okay. And that's just calibrating itself. So here is where you would choose your designs. So these are all the patterns, and then these are all the fonts in here. So if we go into this folder, you'll see you've then got separated folders in here to choose your different design. So I'm going to go into here and find a butterfly. This will then tell you that the minimum size hoop that you need is 140 by 140 millimeters. If you go smaller than that, it's not going to let you stitch it because the design is too big. Basically, it'll end up hitting the hoop. So if I wanted to just sew this out now, I can just, as it is, very simply sew it out. But if I wanted to manipulate it and add other things to it, I then go back to home and go to the kind of design grid, as I call it. And it's now popped that into the grid. I'm using a bigger hoop, so I'm going to go into the hoop size and I'm going to tell it that I've got that size on. And you'll see now this is resized to the size hoop I'm doing, so I can manipulate my design within those parameters. So there's a few things I can do if I want to. So I could copy that design. If I press that one and then drag that away, you can see I've now got 2 butterflies in there. I only want 1, so I'm going to keep 1 selected, delete that out, and just put that back in the middle. If I want to change the size of it, I can press that one, and I can go 20% bigger, or I can go 20% smaller. which I'm going to do. So I'm going to keep it there. Now I want to add some words around the butterfly. So I'm going to go back to the home page and go into my fonts. In this one here, you can choose your different style that you want. Let's go for a whimsical, I like to say that, a whimsical one. So it's on a medium font. I'm going to change it down to a small, and I'm in capitals at the moment. And I'm just going to put in down to lowercase, happy, oops, can't spell, I didn't do that on purpose actually, but if you go wrong, you can just press delete. It'll take out that letter and then you can carry on. Oh, not spelling very well today, am I? Happy days, I'm going to put. And okay. And then I want that to go up the top there. And then I'm going to add in another one that says, I really struggle when it keypads in alphabetical order. F-L-U-D-D-E-R. Happy days flutter by. Let's do that with a couple of dots. There you go. Okay, and then I'm going to put that down underneath. So I'm creating my design. Now I'm going to keep those at the same sizes. I can move along, and if I want to, I can rotate my design in 45-degree increments or just a degree. I'm going to keep it straight. I can mirror image it, so if I want the butterfly facing the other way, you can do it that way as well, but as you'll see with this one, it's kind of the same both sides, so it doesn't really make too much difference. Now with my font, I want to curve that slightly, so that's where you can do that, and you can press to curve, however curvy you want it. Let's go for that one, and then I want the spacing a bit further apart, I think. There, okay. And then I'll do the same with this one, but on a slightly different, angle, that way, and then again, increase the spacing there, thus making it kind of one design, if you like. Don't want to go there. Or you can spend hours playing, trust me. So I'll do that, and then this I'm just going to bring down. So you can move it around on the screen here, that's your drag and drop feature. And then if you want to do it quite intricately, you can with these arrows. So let's go down to there. That'll do. Okay. And then this is my embroidery screen, so you can see it says ready to sew. This is the size hoop that I'm going to be using, and the design itself is 112 by 129 millimeters, 8 colour changes, and those colours are listed down here. It's going to stitch out 500 stitches per minute. The whole design takes 19 minutes. That's where the foot's going to sit, and the tension is on auto tension. So let's thread the machine up. So I've got embroidery bobbin thread here, and that threads in exactly the same way as it does for sewing. So drop it in, under the lip and around. And then the first colour it wants is like this plummy colour. So there's one thing the machine does not know, and that is what colour thread that you put on it. So you can put any colour that you like. If you want to change your colours and want to see what it looks like before you sew it out, if you go back a stage, scroll across to this colour wheel, this is the one that I had selected, so I could then change that to be blue and choose my shade of blue if I wanted to. I actually think I might do it in green. No, I'll keep it in black. And then okay, if you wanted to do the butterfly, you select the butterfly and go to there, and it brings up each section of the butterfly for you. So you can scroll across, and that's all the colour changes, so you can change the colours as you like to. And it's good because you can then see, like I say, what it's going to look like. And if you want to see it up close, you can press this zoom button, press that one there, and then you're seeing it up close, so you can see what you're going to achieve. Okay, let's put it back to normal. I was going to say actually, so in here is Janome polyester. in the settings, you can, whoops, it's okay out of that, you can change somewhere here. So you've got a few popular brands built in here. So you can, if you want to, if you're using one of these brands, select this, and then it will tell you the exact colour numbers that you need to use. But as I say, you don't have to do that because the machine's not going to know what colours you are adding onto it. Okay, so the first colour is black, I'm going to say. So I'm going to thread it in exactly the same way again for sewing. So I pop my thread on, pop the spool cap on. I can just see that's gone around the pin there. That's not what you want. There. And then follow the numbers. So number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the needle threader is number 7. I'm just going to drop that presser foot down to give the needle threader a bit more room. That's that done. Pop that up again. Now I've already hooped up my fabric and stabiliser, so I've got some felt and a standard tearaway stabiliser, and then I'm just going to pop that under the foot, and then this piece slots onto the piece at the back. And then I'm going to drop the presser foot and start embroidering. So that's that colour finished. You can see number 1 has now disappeared from the screen. It's already performed 230 stitches and it's ready for the next colour. So I'm going to take this thread out, like so. Grab my next colour. And then thread in exactly the same way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you get the idea. 6, 7. Drop the presser foot to do the needle threader, and then you just press start to carry on with the colour. And every time it's finished with the colour, that's what it will do. It will stop, you rethread with the correct colour, and off you go again. So I'll get that done, and I'll see you back when the design's finished. So that's the design finished. Now, before I show you the results up close, I just want to talk a bit about positioning. So by default, a design will stitch out in the centre of the hoop, but sometimes, depending on the fabric you're working on, a garment you're working on, you might want to position it in this lower corner, for instance. So let's say we wanted to add a small flower down in the corner of this now. So automatically it is going to put it in the centre. Now, yes, I can just pick it up and put it here, but I've got no idea at this stage if that's going to hit these letters on the existing design. So I'm going to OK that because I've finished editing, and you can see it's down in this bottom corner. Actually, I'm going to go back because I think I might make it a bit smaller, so it'll fit in. OK, OK, and OK. This box here is where you can check the outer square of a design and where it's going to fall. So if I press this one in the middle and we watch the needle, it's going to trace a box of where this flower is going to go. So I could see from there that it's going to sit too close for what I want to that letter F. So I'm going to move the design down and across a little way. And then if I do my trace again, I can see that that's going to fit neatly in that corner. These arrows here, if I do this one, what that's showing me now is where the needle is. That is the very bottom of my design here. So if you had a line or the top of a pocket that you wanted to line it up with, you can go down to the bottom, you can see where it's going to line, and then go across and follow your line across with the needle. I hope that makes sense, and it does take a bit of getting used to, but it is a tool that you can use to help position your embroideries. And don't forget, there are the templates that sit on there as well to help you with that and get them straight. These ones up here are basting stitches. So if you were using a thick fabric that you can't hoop up, you can float it in the hoop is what they call it, so you can lay it on top. And then you can go in and you can do a basting stitch, which is basically going to just do very long stitches around where my design is going to go. Like so. And that helps to keep the layers together, like I say, if it's something that you're not able to hoop and you're floating. And then when your design is done, you can very easily take those out. But let's take a look at the results of our design. Now, as you can see, it's produced a lovely result, both with the intricate line stitching and also with the satin stitches, which are fairly small actually for an embroidery machine, but it's done a very neat job. And because it's got the automatic thread cutter in there, it's taking care of all the jump stitches between all the different letters and parts of the design, so you've got no tidying up left to do. And then on the underside, you can see where it's tied off all these ends for you. So you would now just go through and remove your stabilizer, and then your design is ready to use. This machine comes with a 2-year warranty, and you can extend that to 3, 4 or 5 years. And in the box there is a card that explains that to you. And don't forget that we're here as well at the Sewing Studio. We're sewers ourselves, and we're on hand to help you with anything that you might need with your new machine. So now we've come to the end of the video. I hope I've managed to demonstrate to you just how easy the Atelier 9 is to use for both sewing and embroidery, and how you can achieve the best of both worlds in one compact machine. If you're local to us, why not pop in and try this machine for yourself? But if you've already decided that this is the right machine for you, then head on over to our website and grab yours now. Delivery is fast and it's also free. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.